Yes, yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Founders. Welcome to the Founders Pod. I am your host, A. Rich Akeem Richens. If you don't know me by now, if you don't know us by now, please get to know us. We are the Built in Buffalo Network, and today, no, ladies and gentlemen, it is not DM3. I have my other brother, Mr. Lance Nelson. How you doing today, Lance?
Doing good, man. Another day closer to finding out when we're going to play some games here and what teams we play in what order. So I'm excited to see that. Get to see some rookies out on the practice field and get a little bit more acquainted with them. So things are progressing through the off season here, and pretty
Mhm.
excited for what's to come.
Yeah, you and me both. It's an exciting time. If you're a real football fan, it's an exciting time to even go through the process before the season starts. I know we
Yep.
get antsy and we want to see games, but to see the rookies out there, to see Brandon Bean and Sean McDermott and players hold press conferences, and we see players to get out on the field and be excited about being on the field, and you see Joe Brady working with Keon Coleman, we are excited for the activities as real diehard football Buffalo Bills fans. So I'm excited for the entire process, Lance.
Yeah, enjoy the ride, right? That's what I like to say. I was commenting on some things on Twitter, even guys like Sal Capaccio and stuff, putting talking about mock schedules or just doing the little things throughout
Mhm.
these times, and it's like even with the mock drafts and all this stuff, it's like people are just trying to enjoy the ride, and that's the thing. We're not at September yet, and I'm not going to wish to be there tomorrow. I'm going to
Right.
enjoy every day as it comes, and get take what I can get, from a content standpoint, but also just enjoy it, enjoy the projection and all that stuff as we
Mhm.
move closer.
100% agree. If you're watching on Facebook, please give this a like, give this a share. If you're watching on YouTube, please give this a like. And if you haven't subscribed to the Built in Buffalo YouTube channel thus far, please do so. Go ahead, subscribe to the channel. It's okay. I'll be here when you get back, and you can continue watching the rest of the show. Last but not least, if you are watching on X, formerly known as Twitter, please give this a like, give this a repost, so we can get the algorithms up in all platforms for the Built in Buffalo network. But let's get into the show, right? The Buffalo Bills, the process is still ongoing, and we're still in the developmental phase in terms of what the exact roster will look like come September. But the Buffalo Bills did hold the draft. They did implement 10 players and undrafted players on that built Buffalo Bills roster. And today we're going to assess position groups where players were selected by the Buffalo Bills. But before we get into that, we have an offensive coordinator I want to talk about a little bit, right? Because Joe Brady, once again, and we're going to have a lot of talking points about Joe Brady throughout the entire offseason and as the season goes along for the Buffalo Bills, depending on what that offense do. But he is now he now has an entire offseason to work with, right? He has an entire offseason to build his offense exactly the way he wants it. There's no more uh, Ken Dorsey discussions to be had now that he has an entire offseason. What do you expect to see from a Joe Brady offense this year that we probably didn't see last year? Or what do you think Joe Brady would enhance on this year that he did well last year in his offense?
Yeah, the one thing he seems to be teaching early is, different spacing between the wide receivers and how to get their routes run with spacing between the different routes and the different personnel. One of the things that everyone criticized with Ken Dorsey is there was too many bunching of routes and things like that. And that didn't necessarily change a ton with Joe Brady. He definitely made some improvements right away with that, but I expect him to just change it even further and further improve kind of the route running and the route spacing and the personnel spacing overall, and to try to get that. I'm interested to see what he's going to do with different pre-snap motions and where to get guys into positions where they can be in a matchup that they can win, maybe a one-on-one. So um, Yeah, that's a good one. Pretty funny. Anyway, so I'm interested to see how he implements kind of some of the window dressing, but then also really the personnel placement and spacing. I think that's going to be a big component because we don't necessarily have that number one stud guy to take all the attention away from anybody. It's going to be, relying on fundamental spacing, getting to the right spot at the right time, and I'm going to be interested to see what he can do with some of these guys.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Joe Brady's offense is an offense I want to see continue to develop. I know he ran the ball well last season. I know that's an identity I think he'll compound on this year. I think he will continue to implement that run game. I see Roy Collins has a comment up here. I do believe Joe Brady will continue to implement that run game and set up passing plays based on how effective the Buffalo Bills run the ball. I would like to see him how he adjusts to his spread concepts. He was known to be a spread concept guy and to have speed and love to test the boundaries horizontally. But with these type of players, it looked like a basketball team out there with Keon Coleman and Mac Hollins, and now you got Chase Claypool and Brandon Bean has been talking up Tyrell Shavers. So I would like to see how he's going to fit all the strengths of these receivers in these skill sets for the Buffalo Bills. So it's going to be interesting to see how Joe Brady continues to construct and mold this offense for the Bills.
Yeah, from my count here, I don't think we necessarily ran the ball more every game. There certainly were games. I mean, that Dallas game was 100%, run heavy. But through the first few games that he took over, was definitely more pass heavy. And then the last few games, as we got later in the season, um, from Dallas on, definitely was either very close to even or a little bit run heavy. Seeing that, and then once we got to
To the
the
playoffs.
Miami game where we had to win,
Mhm.
it was still pass heavy. So I don't think that's necessarily. I don't think you need to worry about this thing going. We have Josh Allen. It's not going to go to a completely run heavy offense. Just the personnel that's here lends itself to throwing the football. We're definitely going to have the emphasis on establishing the run, maybe a little bit more.
Mhm.
Um, but I hope there was just too much predictability with the run game at times, I believe, and I think you really have to try to avoid that moving forward. That's the one thing that I think you know needs to be improved on from what I saw last year is because you just too many times said, "Oh, this is going to be a handoff." Based upon the personnel, the formation. Yep, they're just going to run it right into the wall. Why? And then they tried to get cute a few times, swing passes to Diggs and stuff, and that stuff just didn't work because the personnel just wasn't. Diggs wasn't that guy. They tried to use him that way and tried to figure it out, but um, I'll be interested to see the percentages because this offense was so heavily in the short passing game, short center, primarily the center of the field was a large majority of the passing. Let me get the percentage. 22.3% short center, and then
Mhm.
10% intermediate center,
Mhm.
and 4% deep center. So you have just 36% of attempts going in the center of the field, and then nearly a quarter of the attempts are, at or behind the line of scrimmage near. So it's very, very interesting. It's going to be very interesting to see how that spread changes, um, or
Or
in maybe if does it increase, because of the
right,
personnel we have. It's
right.
get the ball in the guy's hands and let him run. How much of that can you really rely on? I would like to see. Hopefully, they talk about explosive plays. I want to see how many explosive plays they can generate if they're going to implement just that short passing game. How
Mhm.
many actually can break, and then how many times do you actually take that shot and hit it down the field? this year, because that's one of the things we didn't do a lot of last year. We didn't have that big bomb play. The one big play was it was like a hitch or an out to Diggs, and then he just broke two Miami defenders there and went
Hmm.
and he scored a touchdown from that. But
Hmm.
outside of that play, there wasn't a ton of those plays to lean their hat on. So that's what they talk about wanting. We'll see how they implement it, how they get it done.
And that's what I'm hoping, and we should be hoping that Joe Brady can compound on with having an off season to really implement his offense, and that's developing that intermediate and vertical passing game to go along with that short
Mhm.
passing threat, so you could take away some predictability on offense, and people don't have to worry. You don't want defenders not having to worry about going deep or going long, right? Because then it just shortens the field tremendously, and then you can become a real predictable offense. So we want to see Joe Brady compound and construct his offense with having the ability to go intermediate and long with the passing plays. We'll see how the receiver skill sets, we could probably talk about that in a minute, play out and mesh with Joe Brady's offense. But um, I want to move along because I don't want to take too much time. We have a lot to go over, a lot to talk about. Uh, the Buffalo Bills, they felt the need to wait on a wide receiver. They traded back a couple of times, as we all know. We all had our feelings of who was there with Worthy and Leggett, but the Buffalo Bills and Brandon Bean was comfortable selecting Keon Coleman with the first pick in the second round of the draft. So uh, Lance, I want to ask you, what are your thoughts on Keon Coleman, and what does he bring, or what can he bring to the Bills offense, and can he bring that immediately?
I think he's going to be asked to do some immediate, give some immediate contribution, barring some big move that some people are speculating, and I don't know, and that's another topic we could talk about in a few here. Um, 658 yards at Florida State last year with 11 touchdowns. So scoring points. He's going to be a guy in the red zone where we're going to look for him. I would expect him to get his number called a little bit more inside the 20 this year to maybe to start putting that on his plate first, and then from there adding to it. And it's not like they're not going to try to throw him the ball if they have the ball outside of the red zone. I just think that's where he can really come in and make an impact right away with his big body, being able to go get the football in maybe a short window, and he's got a wide catch radius, so he can really, Josh Allen has that knack to keep things alive, and we saw it even with Shakir. He made a phenomenal throw, rolling to his left even,
Mhm.
where he put the ball kind of down right at the pylon, and Shakir made a great catch at that one. So I think to start, his immediate impact is going to be in the red zone for the Bills. And it wasn't my first choice for a wide receiver. I think that's
Mhm.
well documented. But as he finally got on the team, and you continue to do more work on him now that he's here, and just, man, he has done nothing but impress in every sort of media that he's put out, every conference he's done, and all that. He's said all the right things. He
Mhm.
really seems to like, he's a Louisiana kid, so he seems to like Joe Brady, coming from Louisiana a little bit there too, he mentioned. So for me, I really think that, I always said he's going to have a nice career, and now I think it's going to be even better having Josh Allen throwing him the ball. And to start, his biggest contribution, I think, has to start in the red zone, because the biggest question I think with this offense is going to be, how are you scoring points?
Mhm. Mm. I like it. I like it a lot. Keon Coleman, 6'4". He's about 6'4", 213 pounds. I think he adds a dimension to the Buffalo Bills that we haven't seen before. Big catch radius, big red zone threat, a contested catch guy. I don't think Josh Allen has had that. I know a lot of people would say, well, Josh Allen doesn't throw contested footballs. Well, he never had a guy that can go up and catch the football in contested situations like a Keon Coleman. I just think he's an explosive short area athlete, short area burst. And when I think about Joe Brady's offense, how his strengths is get the ball out quickly and shorten intermediate as well. I think Joe Brady's offense aligns with some of the strengths that Keon Coleman possesses. So I think he can definitely make an impact as primarily an X receiver, but we all know the Buffalo Bills like versatility and they like their receivers and their players to play multiple positions. So as much as I think that he will be an X receiver, we saw Gabe Davis last season in the slot 17.4% of his snaps. We saw Stephon Diggs in the slot in 30% of his snaps. So I believe we had Khalil Shakir in the slot a lot at a high percentage rate, right? So I believe Keon Coleman will have an impact as an X receiver, but I think he will be placed in the slot as well. And I don't think he will be a guy that defensive backs would be a fan of jamming and trying to play press coverage against, because he enjoys that physicality. He wants to put a guy on the ground and be that dominant physical specimen. And I don't think the Buffalo Bills had that. So can he make an immediate impact? I believe so. And I believe he will make an immediate impact. It's how big the impact will Keon Coleman will make. And that is up to Joe Brady, right? That is up to how he installs his offense around Keon Coleman's strengths in his game. So I think it's going to be it's going to be a learning curve. Obviously, transition into the NFL, and everybody spoke about his speed. But I want to ask you: are you concerned with the separation ability from Keon Coleman and his speed at the next level?
No, that's what this whole program's about.
Mhm.
You bring these guys in. He still has explosive, um, testing with his vertical and his broad jump. Still has the ability to be explosive,
Mhm.
but you know what? Um, I don't know exactly where that criticism comes from, but if it's because he can't run a 40-yard dash fast or whatnot, or he wasn't asked to do a lot of that in
Mhm.
college, I think that can be developed 100%. I don't think you're going to see it right away, though. With that said, I don't think it's year one. It's, by year three, though, he's going to have learned, he's going to have grown, he's still growing into his body. You hear that. So, you know, he's going to learn how to really control his body, get his footwork down. He's going to have a ton of coaching help to get to where he needs to be when it comes to separating and creating the space he needs. Now, the thing is, he doesn't need a lot of space because of his catch radius and things like that to be successful here. So I don't think it's necessarily a big issue. I'm not concerned because the coaching staff for the Bills is one of the top in the league at finding a way to develop these guys to do what they need to do, and then also putting them in the position to succeed in the first place is a huge strength for this team. And
Mhm.
I think Joe Brady is going to do a very good job of that. And especially with the amount of broken plays that this offense seems to have, separation on the initial route isn't as critical for me as it may be in some other offenses.
Now, when I hear the saying track speed is different than football speed, because we hear that saying a lot,
Right.
right?
Right.
But this is the first year that I can actually put a face to that saying, and that face is Keon Coleman's. He is the definition of that saying. Track speed is different than football speed. Next Gen Stats came out with a metric. They was tracking the miles per hour on 15 receivers and the routes that they run, right? Keon Coleman ran a 4.6 40-yard dash. He came in 15th. He came in last based on the 15 receivers that ran that metric. When running slants, he ran slants at 19 and a half miles per hour. That was third out of the 15 receivers. In running daggers, he ran daggers at 18 miles per hour. That's fourth out of 15 receivers that ran this metric. in running go routes, running straight line go routes. He ran it at 21 and 3/4 miles per hour. That was tied for second in this metric. And last but not least, in the slot strike, he ran at 18.5 miles per hour. That was second out of 15 receivers. So he runs the 40-yard dash and it doesn't look good. It doesn't test well. But when you have the pads on and when he's on that field, he's running routes and running routes to the ability as the faster receivers that you would see in the NFL. So when I look at that metric, and we saw the drill that everybody spoke about during the combine and how fast he ran that drill. I am not necessarily concerned
The
with
gauntlet,
with
yeah.
Yep, with the speed and the separation ability. Anquan Bolden ran a 4.640 and has success. No, do a lot of receivers do that? No, but receivers have had success in the past, and that gives Keon Coleman hope, right? Devontae
Yeah.
Adams ran a 4.5640, and he is possibly the best receiver in the NFL. So I'm not worried about his speed metric at all. Give me
Yeah,
your
and just like we were talking about, where we're lining up and things, you just even like Dalton Kincaid, he lined up as much in the wide area of the field as he did in line as a tight end and primarily in the slot. But just the ability to line you up on the guy that you can separate from. Okay, that's like, yeah, maybe he can't separate from the elite Sauce Gardners of the world. Maybe he
Mhm,
can't,
mhm.
but he probably won't need to.
Could win in different ways.
They're going to put him in different positions where they're not just, I hope anyway, I guess I have pretty good faith that they're not just going to sit there and, try to make this guy something he's not. That's just not what the Bills do. They're going to key in on the matchups that he can win and put him in that place to beat his man in those situations, in those matchups. However, they need to do whatever they need to do pre-snap to get those matchups. That's what they're going to do. They're not going to set this kid up to fail and just try to go against the number one corner. And if teams need to shadow him with their number one corner, especially in his rookie year, I'll consider that a win, because if they think that highly of him and they're seeing that means he's producing,
Mhm.
all for it. If you got to shadow him into the slot and into these areas
Yes.
with your number one corner, great. That's going to help us win everywhere else.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. We have 222 people watching this live show. I appreciate each and every one of you. We only have 7 likes. So the math is a little off. So please take some time, take 2 seconds, just 2 seconds, hit that like button. And I want everybody in the chat right now. I want to get y'all answer to the question I'm about to ask Lance. Right now, Lance, we spoke about Keon Coleman. We taking a look at the rest of the receiving room: Keon Coleman, Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir, Mac Hollins, Justin Shorter, KJ Hamler, Andy Isabella, Tyrell Shavers, Quintez Cephas, Chase Claypool, Xavier Johnson, Lawrence Keys. Give me a number from 1 to 10. How good or how comfortable are you with the Bills wide receiving core? Numbers 1 through 10, 10 obviously being the most comfortable and a damn good position group.
Probably 6.5 right now.
Okay.
Just like, I don't know, man. It's a lot of I don't know. It's a lot of maybe this guy could do this very well. Will they put him in the position to do that? Will
Mm.
this second round pick that hasn't done much yet figure it out in Buffalo? I don't know. Damn, Roy. I
Damn,
don't know
Roy's
about
right.
that.
I don't know neither, but I can't. I understand it though. I understand it. It's an uninspiring group. Now it's a
Mhm.
group that could have potential. Now Keon Coleman can come and contribute. Curtis Samuel, I like his skill
I'm
set. Khalil
high on
Shakir,
Curtis Samuel, I guess.
yeah,
Maybe that's what
yeah,
increases my grade.
yeah. Khalil Shakir can continue to ascend. Chase Claypool is 6'4", 240 pounds, and ran a 4.4 240 with a 40-inch vertical. If we can unleash anything with Chase Claypool, it would be tremendous. But
Mhm.
like you said, it's a lot of I don't knows. There's a lot of I don't knows. I'm gonna go ahead and say about a 6. I'm gonna go ahead and say a 6, Lance. And because I say a 6 and you say a 6.5, do you think the Buffalo Bills are content at the wide receiver position? And if not, do you have anybody in mind or anything you thinking that the Buffalo Bills can do?
I mean, I don't know if they're going to do anything, obviously, but I'm very interested with this post June 1st. And this is, I kind of brought this up a little bit earlier and said we'll talk about it
Mm-hmm.
later. So now's a good time.
Mm-hmm.
With the post June 1st money opening up, I
Mm-hmm.
just wonder if the receiving position is where they go and spend that, or if they try to spend it on a different position. They've brought in a lot of guys with signing Quintez Cephas and Chase Claypool recently. Like
Mm-hmm.
those guys are um, at least notable signings. They're not, I mean, it's not a top receiver, I know. So are they actually going to add a top receiver to this group? It probably needs it. It probably could use it. I would be
Mm-hmm.
more comfortable if they did that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I know Dave's favorite is DK Metcalf, I think, and there's rumors about Debo Samuel. Um, Obviously, like an Ayuk or a Higgins, if we
Mm-hmm.
can make that work somehow, which probably can't, but um,
Mm-hmm.
those would be good ideas for me. And then there's I don't know if it's not a top end wide receiver, I don't know what the point would be in adding any more of the second tier, third tier type receivers. We have a lot of them, So if that's the just go into the season with what you got. But if you can add, a talent that immediately kind of becomes the focal point on game day, then I'm all for that. And guys like DK Metcalf or Debo Samuel or
Mm-hmm.
Ayuk or Higgins, like those are going to be very difficult assets to acquire. But if there's some way that being made it work, which is not out of the realm of possibility in my mind, that would be huge. But I'm not really for trying to pull strings or spend more assets on kind of B level receivers. I don't need that in this team. Like if we're gonna kind of play for the future here and make this, a cap reset year and all that stuff, then I'm good with what we have. And, if you need to add another edge rusher or something else to help a corner, let's say, I don't know. But if you want to add at another spot other than receiver, I'm cool with that too. I just think one of my questions, I guess, was, is this the position? Is wide receiver the position where they allocate those funds and that money when it opens up post June 1st?
I absolutely think so. I feel a lot comfortable with Mac Hollins as a wide receiver 5 as opposed to a wide receiver 4. I would feel a lot comfortable just dropping everybody down a slot. And I know, Cortland Sutton has been a name that comes up a lot. Denver Broncos, they don't know, what they're really doing with him. I know he wants another contract. I'm not sure how happy he is in Denver. I'm not really a fan, but one guy that's intriguing to me, uh, but well, first of all, I don't think T. Higgins and Brandon Ayuk, I don't think they're realistic options, right? Uh, I really like the possibility of a Tyler Lockett. I know DK Metcalf's out there. They drafted the kid from Ohio State last year who's going into his second year, who is supposed to be one of the better up and coming receivers in the NFL. I like Tyler Lockett in terms of his ability. He can come in. I think he's an upgrade right away at the wide receiver 2 position, or one or two position. Proven guy, process guy. So a guy like Tyler Lockett would be someone. I'm not sure what his numbers are currently, but he would be somebody that I would be intrigued about if the Seattle Seahawks were entertaining moving their veteran receiver.
Yeah, I mean that's another guy I heard um, earlier today, and I'm just kind of like, I don't know, man. Like, what is it gonna cost? I guess what is it gonna cost to get him? The money is fine, but what is the asset gonna be?
Hmm.
They're not gonna trade him for nothing. You're gonna have to pay
Right,
for it. Like,
right.
what are you gonna pay for a Tyler Lockett? Um, 13 million in cash, I think, would be the cost for them to acquire him this year, and then you
Mm,
have an out with a $4 million dead cap next year,
okay.
and acquiring him. So it costs about 13 million, assuming they would, eat whatever the actual cap is, and then we would just pay the cash.
Hmm.
Um, for him. So that would be, according to Spot Track, that's basically what his number would be. But
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't.
It's tough.
It's
It's tough.
not like nothing. It's maybe it's an attempt and it's the best they can do. And if
Mhm.
that's what they feel is necessary in their heart of hearts, then
Mhm.
fine. Doesn't doesn't do it for me necessarily though. I don't know. I don't. I would rather just not spend anything and do
Go
what I
with
got
what
to
you got.
do.
Yeah,
You
go with
know,
what you got.
you couldn't if you couldn't make the move or you couldn't get um you know, I don't know. It's like the only thing this receiving room for me is missing is that A lister, that number one true.
True
Lockett's
number
a
one
fine
receiver.
player, but and he had his time where he was that maybe, but I don't know if that he's that now.
Mm, mm.
I know he's definitely underrated. I know definitely people have overlooked
For
him
some
a
time.
lot in his
For some
career,
time. Yes, sir.
and I'm just not sure where he's at because I haven't been able to study him and watch him as closely.
Mm.
But I know he's definitely a fine player. I just don't know if he moves the needle enough to spend an asset on, I guess, or
That's
what that asset would be.
would look like. I would think a mid round pick, maybe a fourth round pick for a guy like Tyler Lockett. Um, Again, but we'll see. Post June 1st, obviously nothing can happen now. It's some speculation, but I think we all can agree that the Buffalo Bills wide receiving core, even with the addition of Keon Coleman, is a little uninspiring, unimpressive, right? So we'll see what happens and if they can develop and potentially be a good group by development. We'll see what happens there. We spent some time on that. I want to move on, right? Now, Lance, I want to ask you. Uh, A. Rich, Akeem Richards, Lance Nelson, Founders Pod. Thank you for everybody tuning in. We have 241 people in this chat. I want to ask Lance, along with everybody in the chat, my next question. Were you surprised on how high in the draft the Buffalo Bills prioritized the safety position? Second round selection. Right? We you heard a lot of people talk about, hey, Brandon Bean and Sean McDermott, they can plug and play me and you out there. We can go and have success at safety. But yet, the Buffalo Bills, in my opinion, spent a high draft capital in what we thought wasn't a premium position. Lance, were you surprised?
Wasn't surprised. This guy Cole Bishop was nearly a perfect fit. There was an article that came out, and it's escaping me who actually wrote it at this time, but they put together a list of perfect fits for the teams they were drafted by, and Cole Bishop was that for the Bills. And so, because of the guy that they took and the great scheme fit, um, just he has the familiarity with Dalton Kincaid from playing at Utah, has the intangibles that you look for in a McDermott defensive player, 6'2", 206 pounds, has the length
Mm-hmm.
and just everything. 7.5 sacks throughout his time in college, 197 tackles. So very, very impressed with Cole Bishop right now. Was a guy that I wanted at Peter DiBiase and we mocked Bishop a lot to the Bills. Now, we started the whole process, it was mocking him in the fourth round. So you know what I mean? That's kind of where we saw a fourth round, like, okay, now we can target the safety. So that, plays right to your question.
Mm-hmm.
But as it got closer to the draft, it seemed like he was shooting up boards. And I think Peter Schrager even mocked him in the second round to the Bills there. So once I saw that, it kind of got me thinking, like, okay, maybe this is happening because we knew um, that a safety probably was going to be priority in the draft, and we didn't have a third round pick. So were they wanting to wait till that lot of fourth rounders, or were they going to go up and get one of the top guys in the second? It was definitely an uncertainty, but I'm not surprised by any means that that's what they did. I think that it was, especially for the player they got, a perfect fit. Had they taken Cam Kinchins or something like that then as well, I think that would have been okay because that was just, if that's the route you want to go, I think those are the guys. Those were the area where you're going to have to start picking those guys. You're muted.
Yeah, amateur hour, right? Yeah. Yeah, I was a little surprised that they did go that high. I was thinking more maybe third round they would start going safety, but like we all say, when you target a guy, go get your guy. And I believe the Buffalo Bills, even Brandon Beane even said, hey, he wanted to move up. He was trying to move up for Cole Bishop, and he had no takers. So fortunately, he got him at his selection he was sitting at. So that goes to show that this was definitely Cole Bishop was definitely a Brandon Beane Buffalo Bills guy, and they wanted him. And he's one of the more athletic safeties we've had. We love Micah Hyde. We love Jordan Poyer, but they were instinctive, high character, high IQ players, not necessarily great athletes. And with this guy in Cole Bishop being 6'2", 206 pounds, runs a 4.45 40, has a 39-inch vertical, ran a 1.52 shuttle, that short shuttle that mirrors receivers, explosive receivers. So to have that athletic ability at the defensive back, at the safety position, is something that the Buffalo Bills hasn't had, and I believe he still has the high character and the IQ and the instinctiveness that Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer possess as well. Now he's still a rookie; he's going to have to get accustomed to the speed of the game, but in time, I think he will develop that and develop into a fine player at worst. And I think he has the potential to be a perennial Pro Bowler in the back end for the Buffalo Bills. Now, where does he play? I know he can cover tight ends and running backs and receivers in certain plays and situations, but where does he ultimately line up? Is he a strong safety, or is he a deep third? Is he a free safety? Where would you want to see him line up?
My anticipation is that they're trying him at free safety to start, and just I think they're going to probably bring him in though. He's coming from a scheme that is completely different from Buffalo, so he's going to have to learn this and get comfortable with this. It's going to take some time. I see
Hmm.
year one as a position as a situational, um, you know, go out there and show me what you can do in this situation
Okay.
or that situation. And in year one, I think that lends itself to seeing him do a lot do a lot of things, and a little bit of both strong and free, because I think they're going to put him in the box, see what he can do there in situations where they think he can succeed. And then I think in the situations where they need to rotate him into free safety, because there's talk about wanting to limit snaps for certain guys to mess with the compensatory formula, which I just completely think is nonsense. But people are saying it, so there may
Hmm.
be some smoke to it, I guess.
Uh-huh.
Um, so if that's if that's really the case, I guess I'm expecting to see him, um, at free safety once he settles in as a starter. But I think he's going to do a little bit of both and get in the box plenty in year one, maybe year two as well.
Yeah, I think Cole Beasley. Is he talking about me? I think Cole Bishop is going to be a day one starter. I would now. I love his versatility. I think he can do both, and I think he will do both in certain situations and in game specific matchups. But I want to see him around the line of scrimmage. I want to see him around the ball, around the line of scrimmage. In the box. I want him to use that explosiveness, that burst, that tenacity that he have, and be that player around the football. I think he can play deep third safety, but I do think he has some vulnerability there. So I want to keep him close to the line of scrimmage, around the box, covering certain tight ends in specific matchups, and take it from there. How do you feel about the safety room now that Cole Beasley, I keep saying Beasley, Cole Bishop is inserted into the safety lineup? How do you feel about the overall group with Mike Edwards and Taylor Rapp and Damar Hamlin and Cam Lewis?
Still, uh, leaves a little bit to be desired, maybe, but
Hmm.
definitely adding Cole Bishop improved my comfortability with that room a ton. I think that it was absolutely needed, to add a guy like that in this draft. And for me, I don't know. We'll see how successful Rap is this season now with more added to his plate. We'll
Hmm.
see how Mike Edwards can come in and learn this system and continue his success. He was a decent safety. I don't think he was, but he's along the lines of when, a Jordan Poyer or Micah Hyde came to the system.
Hmm.
He's along those lines of those guys. So can he take and follow in that path? I think the potential's there, but we'll see, if it comes to fruition or not. I'm uh, still a little bit weary on the safety position.
Okay, I feel similar. I feel the same way, kind of the same way I feel about the safety position as the wide receiver position. I see it there. I see some potential there. It's still leaving a little something to be desired. I'm making the gumbo, but I'm still putting seasoning. It's still not hitting right. So we'll see what happens with that safety position. Mike Edwards was never a full-time starter, even though he played a lot. He was more of a rotational piece, a prominent rotational piece, but
Mhm.
rotational piece nevertheless. What's going to happen this year is he's going to develop into that full-time starter. Now with the Buffalo Bills, how will that work out? Taylor Rapp, he was up and down before he made a couple of big plays, especially in that Miami game for the Buffalo Bills. I don't think that's enough to insert him as a starter. And does he have the durability to be a starter? He got injured on a couple occasions last year. So does he have the durability, and is he good enough to get a starter position and hold the fort down? So we'll see there. Cam Lewis, I really like Cam Lewis. He continues to stick around, but how much will he progress to make us comfortable with a safety rotation? God forbid we do have injury at safety. So I believe overall, it's a decent group, but still leaves a lot to desire. In my opinion, I'm gonna go ahead and give it the same number as the wide receivers, and that's a 6.5.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to go up a little bit on, if I'm giving a grade, I'd miss that 7.5. Probably I'm a little
Go
more
seven and a
comfortable with
half.
our safety room
Okay.
than we are, because the comfortability has nothing to do necessarily though with personnel. For me, it's that our coaching staff is so specialized in getting safeties to be in the right position and play at their top level.
Hmm.
Like, that's literally McDermott and Babich. Their specialty is to do that with those type of guys. So,
Hmm.
like, I have more faith in them, regardless of the personnel, than what I did, in the receiver room.
Hey man, I like it, and I do see the potential with the safeties. I just, it's you still have a rookie. Cole Bishop is still a rookie. He still got to get used to the speed and the flow of the game. And Mike Edwards, rotational guy, and Taylor Rapp is just a question mark to me. So
Mhm.
I do think there is some potential there because of the Cole Bishop addition, but still a lot to be desired. And God forbid somebody goes down, then it's like,
Mhm.
okay, it's
Yeah,
it's it's
exactly right.
really it's really it can become a liability real quick. So we'll see what happens. We was talking about possibly adding a wide receiver. Maybe safety can be a post June 1st option for the Buffalo Bills. You never know.
For sure. Yeah, and not very comfortable seeing Damar Hamlin on the field with any sort of regularity at safety. With all due respect to him, and Cam Lewis is liked, though. I think Cam Lewis may be
He's
a
like,
guy
hmm.
that could provide some depth if needed. But yeah, let's see. I'm just trying to pull up quickly to see what
Hmm.
is out there at the
At a safety position, a safety group.
safety position right now. I guess Justin Simmons is still still out there as a
Okay,
free agent. Geez,
he's still
so
out there. Wow,
maybe
wow.
maybe you have a guy like that can be added here post June 1st. That would be yeah, Justin Simmons to this group, and boom, we're
Boom.
rolling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're rolling. I like it. I like it a lot. A Rich, Akeem Richards, Lance Nelson, the Founders Pod. Uh, moving on, Lance. Ed Oliver, Daquan Jones, Austin Johnson, Eli Aniku, Deshaun Williams, and now Dwayne Carter. Lance, how do you feel about the defensive tackle group first? How do you feel about the group overall? And then we'll get into the rookie.
Dude, this group is sick. I love that we added Austin Johnson and Deshaun Williams as veterans. I love getting Daquan Jones back. Ed Oliver is just on a great ascension right now, and I think he continues that. So when you talk about bringing in now a 3-year captain, just a smart football player that just can do about anything you ask him to do on the interior of the defensive line. And
Mm-hmm.
we'll see. Maybe he's going to have growing pains going up against, the next level of talent here on the interior of offensive lines. But man, he has shown known issue getting his hands dirty. He's got just the physicality, the power, the speed, the hand placement, the knowledge of the game, and adding that um, to this room. Just this may be one of our best position groups on the entire team.
Yeah, I really like this group. I really like this group now that we've inserted a guy like Dwayne Carter. Relentless motor, man. Just a
Mhm.
relentless motor, relentless kid. Versatile player. He could play a multitude of positions along the defensive front. He did it well in college. He played out of positions at times in college, So being 6'2", 302 pounds, he's definitely an interior defensive lineman, but I think he has the versatility on certain situations and down and distances to be that base defensive end and or be that one tech or be that three tech defensive tackle. But I really, really like the position group overall. I want to ask though, Lance. Um, I spoke about his height and weight a little bit 6'2", 302 pounds. Ed Oliver is on the team for the foreseeable future. Now, I'm not sure if 6'2", 302 can he hold the fort at one tech and take on those double teams? Where is his position? Is he a future starter or is he a rotational, prominent rotational depth piece?
I think he's a future starter, man. You got to get him in here, and they're going to be able to mold his body to where it needs to get to fit that position. I'm not sure he's ever going to be a straight up one tech guy, but he definitely has. He's a little bit taller and 15 pounds or so heavier than Ed Oliver, so I think he play alongside Ed Oliver just as well.
Mm,
His knack, his energy, his IQ, his understanding about technique and things in his hands really allows him to still generate power when it's needed. And
mhm.
I just think that he's able to put himself in the position that could be needed if he's playing alongside Ed Oliver. I don't have any real reservations about slotting him in a year or two right next to Ed Oliver.
I love him. I love his game. I think he's just more of a three tech defensive tackle. And again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they can round his body to form. Of course, he's going to get stronger now that he's in an NFL weight room. But 6'2", 305, 302 pounds or so. And Oliver is probably a 6 foot, 290 pounds. That will be a small interior defensive front. So I do want to see what happens in the future in terms of future potential for Dwayne Carter. But as of right now, I do think he can make an immediate impact as a defensive player. I do think he can come in and be a part of that heavy rotational defensive front that Sean McDermott likes to implement. And I think that overall, between even the defensive ends with Gregory Rousseau and AJ Epinesa, you have a lot of guys that can play inside and outside, and that can be disruptive for opposing offenses. We'll see what happens with the sacks. We lost Leonard Floyd. We'll see what happens there. But I really like the defensive tackle group. I'm gonna go ahead and give it a 7.5. I think it's a real solid group, and I think they have the depth pieces now with Dwayne Carter and Ed Olive and Austin Johnson and Deshaun Williams to go and implement that heavy rotation and be successful doing it.
Yeah, I'm not as modest on that. I'm going to give it a 9. I mean, you have Austin Johnson.
Ooh,
You have Austin
9.
Johnson coming in at 6'4", 315 pounds, man. He's a big
Mm,
dude. And
wow,
if you need that size coming in, you got it. So you got Daquan. If Daquan Jones goes down,
wow.
You
Okay.
have Austin Johnson. So I mean, I don't think that there's any reason uh, to be coy on this room. It's a really really solid room. They added uh,
Mm,
really good
okay.
veterans, bringing back Daquan Jones, who has the knowledge, and then Austin Johnson, Deshaun Williams, already being some solid rotational pieces if needed, and then Dwayne Carter on top of that and his versatility. So
Mm.
I don't think that there's any reason um, to really back down on this room. I absolutely love it.
Hey man, I like it. I like it. Hey, everybody, we have 300 people in the chat right now. What's your thoughts? What would you grade the defensive tackle group for the Buffalo Bills right now? I got a 7.5. Maybe I'm a harsh critic. Lance is 9. He's overly ecstatic with the defensive tackle room. What do you guys think? Spin. What's your grade, Spin? Let me go
Yeah,
into the
so
comment section.
two one techs next year. That's the whole thing. Now, we've got the veteran one
Mm,
techs this year to fill that role, and then next year, if we need to keep getting younger and add those bigger one techs, we have that ability. But I think that if Dwayne Carter plays next to Ed Oliver from time to time,
mm.
you're not going to put him in there on the goal line or nothing, probably, as your nose tackle for sure. But, just in a normal flow of a game where the next play is not really known, you have they can hold their own, in my opinion.
I like it. I like it. We get some eights here. We get some eights. Derek Gibbs got an 8. Grant had an 8. So okay. I can see 8. I can see 8. I like 9 from Lance. Lance is sold. He gave a good synopsis on why he felt it should be 9. Uh but I think those are solid numbers. Anywhere between a 7.5 and 9. I think 8 is a solid start, solid foundation for the Buffalo Bills defensive tackle group. Uh let's move on. Lance, uh our fourth round selection will be 25 years old before Thanksgiving. Do you have any concerns with Ray Davis' age and his potential ceiling? And what do you think about Ray Davis as the player?
Yeah, definitely have some concerns. I like the versatility he brings, even at his size, still adding the ability to catch and pass block um, from from the backfield. So, you know, if he comes in ready to hit the ground running, literally, and can contribute as that RB2 because he's probably slotted right in there. Um, Great, but I'm not gonna be as sold on that happening right away. Great that he has reliable hands. It's great that he's a nice downhill runner. But yeah, he's got to come in and go right away because he's got 3-4 years before Father Time catches up with him now, and that's about as much as you could probably expect from a guy.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I'm not concerned with his age. I'm not concerned with him being 24, going on 25 years old. The Buffalo Bills, we have a history out there now, and we have to go by what we think based on the history that we've seen. And the history that we've seen from the Buffalo Bills is when they do draft running backs, they play 4 years and then they move on. And I think that is going to be the same deal with a guy like Ray Davis. So because of that, I'm not concerned with his age at all. I like the selection. I think he can come in. Now he's going to have to earn it because I think Ty Johnson is a good football player and a good running back, and he doesn't do anything particularly great, but he does everything well. And I think that is going to be a competition, Ty Johnson and Ray Davis for running back too. But if he does win the job and if we can, perfect world, slot him into that number 2 role, then I think he would be a very nice compliment to a James Cook with him being physical between the tackles and him being the add that extra burst and that thud at the end of tackles, and still showing the ability to catch the ball and be a receiver out the backfield. And I think that's going to be vital, crucial in a Joe Brady offense. Your running backs have to be able to catch the ball out the backfield and make things happen. And I think Ray Davis, James Cook, and Ty Johnson, all three of those guys can do so. And because they can do that and show that versatility, I think Joe Brady has a couple of different packages if he wishes to use them, to use it with these running backs. I have a concern, obviously, with Ray Davis in pass protection being only 5'8". I think that could be a concern on third down. We're going to have to figure out who's going to be the guy to do that with James Cook and his slender body and Ty Johnson. Ty Johnson might be in that role right now. But besides that, I think it could be a solid draft pick for the Buffalo Bills. And I like the running back room right now.
Yeah, I think he's fine for pass blocking, from what I understand. That he has no problem in that area. But uh, yeah, we'll see. I mean, if he can translate, he's got 746 carries plus the receiving touches that he's gotten coming into the NFL. So uh, we'll see. Hopefully, there's lots of tread left on those tires, and he can come in and, like I said, if he comes in, can run downhill to spell James Cook um, and then also, get in on third. I'd like to see James Cook just a little bit more on third down. Personally, I get the whole pass protection thing,
Mm-hmm.
but damn it, he's a weapon in the pass game. Why the hell do we care if he can pass protect? I know there's some schemes where you need that running back there
Mm-hmm.
to be the pass protector, but give me a little more James Cook in the passing game too. With this running back room, we'll see. Cook has to shore up those fumbles for me.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't have a ton of them necessarily, but he had them in some moments, and it just seemed like, all right, we can't have that going forward. We gotta clean that up. So we'll see. I think I'm definitely a little bit nervous about the room to see, because of the unknown on what Ray Davis brings to the table. And I do like Ty Johnson, but would be better fit for me at RB3 than RB2. So
Mm-hmm.
let's hope that we have that RB2. I don't think he had two fumbles in a row in one game.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he had
Mm-hmm.
more than two fumbles. But
Now,
so we'll see. Well, I think as long as he in the moment in the right moments, as long as Cook can secure that ball, which I said he does a decent job of, but had some areas where, or some situations last year where he didn't. So now we'll see.
now the Buffalo Bills last year had James Cook, Latavius Murray, and Leonard Fournette running the football for them. So this year it's going to be James Cook, Ty Johnson, and Ty Johnson was there last year as well, came in later. It's going to be
Mhm.
James Cook, Ty Johnson, and Ray Davis. So I personally, I like the running back room. I like the running back room. I think Ray Davis is going to be a excellent complement to James Cook. He had a lot of hardships growing up, man. He's faced adversity as a child growing up, and when you face adversity as a human being, it tends to make you better at whatever you're trying to accomplish and which you're trying to attain. So I think he's going to have that hunger and going to have that desire and going to have that and show the physicality to be that uh in between the tackles running back when his number is called. So I like the fact that all the running backs can catch the ball out the backfield in Joe Brady's offense. I'm going to go ahead and give this running back room a solid 7.5.
Yeah, I like that 7 for me. That's good.
Okay.
Just to address the James Cook fumble thing, he fumbled once on a reception, and then he
Hmm.
fumbled 4 other times on rushes. So 5 fumbles
Five
all year.
times,
Two in
one
two
game.
in two different games. So he had two
Mhm.
against Denver, two against the Chargers, and then
Right.
the one fumble also on a reception. So
That's
I'm
what we need.
saying
We
he's a
need.
fumble machine. I'm just saying he can't. It was first play of the game. He caught a screen pass and went and fumbled, and so. that's just a scenario where you can't have that in that situation. So as long as those situations don't pop up, I mean, there's never a good situation for a fumble, but you just can't have it at the first play of the game.
Right, right. And that's what we need. What we need, he was a Pro Bowler last year. Excellent. He had a good season, over 1,500 yards from scrimmage. But we need James Cook to be more consistent. We need consistency from James Cook. We need him when the ball is thrown his way. We need him to catch the ball on majority of his targets. He can't be on
Mhm.
and off. When he's running the ball, we need him to hold on to the football. So I think now it's about consistency with James Cook. And if he could compound on that and be a more consistent football player, I think he could be one of the better backs, one of the more elite backs in this NFL. But it all starts with
Absolutely.
consistency. It all starts with
And he didn't
consistency.
he didn't drop a ton either. I mean, 7 drops on 62 targets isn't a ton either, but it's the same thing. You dropped a touchdown or two, and those moments really stick with you. So it's about the situations where you have these drops or these fumbles that really, um, and again, there's no real good time for any of it, but it's just, when it can be a touchdown or when it's the first play of a game and early on like that, those are the kind of thing um, that I see. So, um,
Yep. And
I'm
then
I'm
that's
looking at I'm looking at PFF for stats, guys. I don't know
now
whatever
that's
site
fine.
you want to use, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and that's why, and that's another thing. Talking about Keon Coleman a little bit, I think that's another reason why the Buffalo Bills like him a lot, because he's sure-handed. 3.8 drop percentage
Mhm.
last year. Yeah, 5 drops. You talk about James Cook had 7 drops last season. Keon Coleman had 5 drops the last 2 seasons.
Mhm.
So hopefully that translates to the NFL, and he can continue to be sure-handed. But uh moving on, right? We we drafted Ray Davis. We spoke about Ray Davis. We spoke about Cole Bishop and Dwayne Carter and Keon Coleman. Now let's talk about some offensive line play a little bit, right? We have our guy from Georgia. We have Pran Granger from Georgia. Started 3 seasons for the Georgia Bulldogs in the SEC. So
Mhm.
in the most competitive conference, won the championship in back-to-back years, and he falls to the Buffalo Bills in the 5th round. Shortly after the Buffalo Bills was eliminated out the playoffs, Brandon Beane, he got on a press conference and he said, "Hey, Connor McGovern is going to slide over to center." This was before they was aware of having a guy like Pran Granger on the Buffalo Bills roster. So now, Lance, what happens to the center position? What do you think would happen, or what do you want to see happen? Do you think Brandon Bean is still going to slide over and McDermott going to slide over McGovern, or do you think that now that we drafted a guy like Ranger that we can just seamlessly fit him right in to replace Morse and everybody can stay in their natural spots?
I think that Cedric Van Pran Granger could, if they asked him to, go from day one, but I don't think they're going to ask him to do that. I think they're going to slide McGovern over like they talked about,
Mm,
um, and see what they get out of their left guard at first, with the caveat of giving him the opportunity to earn that. Um, and we'll see where it goes from there. So I would think more of a year or two transition for him to be the starting center more than year one. But man, I think he could do it year one. I really do. This guy, All America in 23, 6'4", 315, athletic center. Already blocked for James Cook before, so has some familiarity there with who's behind him. Um, Maybe comes down to a fit with preference from Josh Allen, who can mesh with him as well, and what the IQ is of picking up. And I think that's why they're going to go with McGovern in
mm,
year one for Van Pran Granger. Excuse me. I think
mm,
year one they go with McGovern having that solid knowledge of the offense, all the calls they want to get to, and things like that. Having
mm,
that better rapport,
mm,
giving Van Pran Granger the ability to have the time to acquire that. But if he picks it up quick, there's no doubt about the fact that he could slot right in, and McGovern could move to left guard, and we could be rolling with that offensive line. And this offensive line, it looks to be good. We got depth everywhere.
Hmm.
Even though we lost some depth, that we ended up getting back some depth everywhere now, and
Hmm.
I really like this offensive line. For me is again, I'm gonna go 9 like I did for the D tackle room, because I think this um, you got everything you need in all the different places, and solid depth and backups should you need them.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and give it an 8.5. With this offensive line, I really like the offensive line as well. I think they're versatile. I think we have a number of guys that can play a number of positions. I think we have depth at a number of positions. It's all about figuring out how it's going to unfold. Like you said, okay, because of the continuity, because of the camaraderie with Josh Allen and understanding the offense and being able to know the calls, and with his second year on the football team, now who's going to play that guard position? Who's slated to guard now? Is it going to be Leal Collins? Is it who's that guard that you would entrust in that lineup to take Connor McGovern's place?
David Edwards is the leader in the clubhouse right now. So I
Mhm.
agree kind of with what's been said. If it's Edwards and McGovern as the better combo versus McGovern and Granger, that's the combo, the combination they're going to roll out. So I really like that point. And that's kind of was my point, is that Van Pran Granger's got to come in and be able to grasp the intricacies of playing offensive line for the Buffalo Bills. Cromer's a hell of a teacher, but it's not simple, and he's going to have some time to get up to speed. And that's why I just think Connor McGovern plays the center position for at least a year, maybe even two, before turning it over. But I think Van Pran Granger becomes a heck of a center in this league and for this team, hopefully.
I think Pran Granger right now is a better center than David Edwards is a guard, if
I
that makes
don't
sense.
disagree with that at all.
And because of that, now I understand, for continuity reasons, and we know how Brandon Bean and Sean McDermott feels about that. But from a talent standpoint, I would go ahead. Listen, let's get this guy's growing pains out the way. Let's go ahead. Let's go ahead, put him there. Seamless transition. Conor McGovern at guard. You have Osiris Torrance. You have your tackles, and now let's ball. That's in my opinion. I think from a talent standpoint, that is the best five. From a camaraderie standpoint, then yes, I understand Conor McGovern in at center and thrusting David Edwards at guard. But we'll see. Well, once as we all know, once the pads come on, the talking is going to be on the field, and the results is going to show the players that's going to play.
Yeah, and again, it's about picking it up. Can he get that IQ? Can he get that familiarity and that understanding of what the offense is trying to do with what his role is? If he can pick that up right away and hit the ground running in that aspect from training camp, then there's no doubt in my mind he could be the starting center year one. I just don't know that that's going to happen, and I don't know that they're going to ask him to do that right away.
Yeah, yeah, and we'll definitely see what happens. But I like this kid a lot, man. I like his
This is
grit.
my favorite draft pick.
Yeah,
Absolutely,
yeah,
this is
yeah,
my
yeah. I
favorite
like
draft pick
this.
so far.
Well, you're a fat guy, so yeah, I could see why. All jokes, baby, all jokes. But yeah, he's
I
my
know.
he's one of
I
my
got the
favorite
most
draft picks as
excited
well.
about the two fattest guys that we drafted. So I'm stoked.
Funny stuff, man. Funny stuff. Hey, Rich, Akeem Richards, Lance Nelson. This is the Founders Pod. We have been going on for about an hour and 10 minutes now. We have a couple of more draft picks. We're not going to get into all 10, but we got two more that I think deserve some topics of discussion. We have Edifon
Ilafo show.
Ilafosio, Ulafosio. Elephant Ulafosio, I believe it is. Now I'm gonna have to go in.
Yolafo show. Yep.
Yellowfosio. Yeah, I'm definitely going to get it correct the next time if I didn't get it correct this time. But the Buffalo Bills drafted Edifon, and when I turn on the tape, he seems like a solid player. I didn't know too much about him before we drafted him, but when you turn on the tape, he seems like a rangy player, sideline to sideline player. He seems as if uh, uh, he understands the nuances of the game and enjoys being around the football and the physicality. So I like the draft pick, but at the same time, the Buffalo Bills, the position group with Matt Milano and Terrell Bernard and Dorian Williams and Balin Spector and Nicholas Morrow and Deion Jones, beyond the quarterback group, beyond the Josh Allen, obviously at the quarterback position, I believe the linebacking core is the deepest and the best group on this football team. And as much as I like him, I'm not sure if he's going to make the 53. He might be a practice squad player because I really like the Buffalo Bills linebacker position group. And I'm going to go ahead and give this group a 9, especially if obviously Terrell Bernard and Matt Milano has to be healthy. But when they're in play, and we saw Dorian Williams play well in spurts, and we saw Bale Inspector play well in spurts, and Nicholas Morrow is a former starter and a former prominent rotational piece with the Philadelphia Eagles. I really like the position group for the Buffalo Bills at linebacker, and they're not going to get caught with AJ Klein playing in a big game against Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, God forbid, if something happens this season.
Yeah, I'm cool with him not seeing the field on defense at all over the next 2 or 3 years. With if Bernard and Milano can stay healthy and Dorian Williams keeps coming up the way he is, but you can't really ask the Morrow and the Deion Jones, and we'll see how effective Spectre is. And you maybe don't want to ask Williams to do as much on special teams anymore. So Yolafosho comes in and can just come in and maybe take over the roster spot of Taylor Matakevich and kind of be that special teams ace for the first couple years as he eases in to to what his defensive role may be able to be on this team. I don't think he needs to have a role on defense right away, even though he's listed as a linebacker. But the way he plays football, a walk-on guy that never is going to take anything for granted, is going to come out to work his ass off for everything that he can earn, and just special teams right away is jumping out to me for this kid.
Yeah, and Spin said if he goes on the practice squad, he won't be there. That he thinks possibly he will get picked up, and I can definitely see that happening. So we'll see what happens. Roy says that Deion Jones won't make the team in his opinion, but he's a veteran presence. I think iron sharpens iron, right? And I think the competition will speak for itself. I think what happens in preseason play would speak for itself. What happens in practice, what happens in the blue and white game, I think all those reps would speak for itself in terms of who would stay and who would go out this linebacking core. But I really like our linebackers, the starters, the depth pieces. I'm gonna go ahead and give them a 9. What number was you giving them, Lance?
I'll go 8, just because not sure on Milano's health yet, if he's going to come right back. If it's Milano that we know and love, then yeah, I mean 9, 9.5. I mean, I'm a little bit crazier. I'll give it a 10. I don't care, but I just don't know Milano yet. So if it's me right now, I gotta go 8.
I'm not mad at it. I do think Milano will get back to form. I think he will get healthy, get back to form. Of course, his injury was a devastating one. It's definitely a major injury, but it's not an Achilles. It's not a torn ACL where I think we would have to worry about like a Von Miller situation. I think it's more about just getting healthy for Matt Milano, and if and when he gets healthy, we're talking about, in my opinion, 2 perennial Pro Bowlers at their position with the linebacker. So because of that, 2 perennial Pro Bowlers, in my opinion, I think they have the potential to be. And when you combine that with the type of depth pieces we have, I definitely go 9.
I'm more on the mental side of things. Can he overcome any of that, fear or anything coming back from such a devastating injury? Are you still able to play loose, play fast, play instinctual without, having that in the back of your mind and worrying about it? Physically, it sounds like something that someone could come back from that, at his level of athleticism without having a ton of setbacks. So hopefully, if he gets right and he's 100% by the time the season rolls around, which by all reports, he's ready to roll for. He's going to be ready to roll for training camp. So I think physically, I don't have a lot of worry or concern there. But as long as he has his mental right and can come in and just still play the way he plays, without any hesitation, without any thinking, then he's going to be fine.
I like it. let's get right into our last guy, last position. I was really high on this pick as well. I really like this pick. I think it was an underrated pick. I think he has some ability to contribute this year in certain pass rushing situations. That's Javon Sullivan. You know, he's 6'1", 246. And the size is not ideal for the defensive end position, but this guy, ferocious motor, constant motor, relentless motor, led college football in sacks last season with 16. He has an array of pass rush moves. He has strong hands. I like his bend. He has some wiggle. He has some ghost move in him. I really like the fact that he can come and learn from a guy like Von Miller right away. And Von Miller, he has his pass rushing camp, and now he gets to develop and tutor a young developing kid in a Solomon. So I think he's an intriguing prospect. I'm excited to see what he does this camp, this off season, and the overall group. It all depends on Von Miller, right? Solomon, Von
Yeah.
Miller, Gregory Rousseau, AJ Epinesa, Casey Tuhill, Kingsley Jonathan, Dwayne Smoot, which I think is a solid addition as well. Uh, I think it's an overall solid addition. If Von Miller can be the Von Miller or get back to 80% of the Von Miller we saw the first season before he got hurt, I think this can be a solid 8 group. But right now, I'm going to go ahead and give it a 7 because I do not know what I see from Von Miller just yet. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going to echo the 7 just because the the unknown of Von. I was as high as anybody could have been last year going into the season on Von Miller, and boy was I completely wrong on that. So if he returns to form like you mentioned, I'm gonna take it and be super pumped about it. But I'm definitely pumping the brakes on my full send from last off season on him, and I just don't know. And I'm gonna say I don't know, and I'm not confident that we're gonna get any elite level play anymore um, from him. And the one bright light, though, is AJ Epinesa seems to be ascending, and I'm so glad we brought him back. I think that he's going to be a really good player on the edge for us. And the bar, as long as he stays healthy, Epinesa, then we're going to have a pretty good edge rotation. And Rousseau and Epinesa would be the 2 starters, in my opinion, at this point.
Now, what do you, now? Now I'm seeing, you know, 5.5. I see my brother Roy. I think he said is a 5. That's some harsh criticism right there, right? That's some harsh
Yeah.
criticism. So when I see numbers like that, my next question is, do we not believe in Gregory Rousseau? The first you skipped over, you glossed over Rousseau, and you went straight to AJ Epinesa. Do we
From a
not?
pass rushing standpoint, it's Epinesa is our now top pass rusher. If Vaughn can't do it, AJ's the better pass rusher. Greg Rousseau is a fine defensive end. Love the way he plays, but it's more about, fitting the run game, being that physical presence on the defensive line. He hasn't necessarily shown all of that pass rush or all of the, sack ability that we want out of an edge rusher. He could this year take another step forward and start improving his pass rushing as well.
Mhm.
But when I think of him, it's more, being in the run game, fitting that physicality, also kicks inside at times to pass rush from the inside when we have 2 guys in the exterior. So definitely finds a way to stay on the field and finds a way to be effective in certain scenarios, but doesn't have that finisher's ability, necessarily that one go-to killer pass rush move that some of these other, premium edge rushers have.
So, all right. So let's put this in perspective, right? Now, I think Gregory Rousseau is indeed going to take that next step up. I think he has the ability to be a double-digit sack guy this season, a 10 sack guy this season. Obviously, he has to go ahead and prove it now. But since I'm seeing the 5.5s and the 5s in terms of how we feel about the defensive ends, let's put all of them together. What about the entire defensive line front? What number would you give them, Lance? When you put the defensive tackles and the DEs together now, when you couple them together, what's your grade now?
I'm still gonna go overall an 8 for the whole defensive
Defensive
line. I
line.
think
Okay.
again, I love the Javon Solomon pick. If we're getting back to that draft pick too,
Mm-hmm.
is that he has longer arms than a lot of guys that are 6'4", 6'5", and 6'6". He is
Mm-hmm.
a extremely long arms. So even though he is 6'1", he still brings that ability to keep people off of him, off of his body. And 246, he's going to need some time to probably develop what his NFL physique will end up being. But with those long arms and leading the league, or leading the uh, nation in college in
Mm-hmm.
sacks last year. I think he one of those guys that has the ability to add a pass rushing prowess to the room that we don't necessarily have with Smoot or Two Hill. Kingsley
Mm-hmm.
Jonathan's developing some things there still, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily sold on him being a prominent contributor just yet. But we'll see kind of how, again, if he can continue to extend, can he continue to take steps forward, and can Casey Toohill provide much of anything once the premier guys that he played with in Washington were gone. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think he didn't have too much success. So I'm not sure how he's going to fare. Maybe he does fit in as that rotational piece though. When he's able to rotate in and not play majority of snaps, he can have that higher motor and have more success. As he did in Washington. We'll see how that continues, but that whole rotation still all hinges on the amount of snaps Von Miller gets on the field, and
Mm-hmm.
we'll see, how that plays out and how effective he can be to actually stay on the field or be asked to be on there at all um, in situations.
Yeah, overall, I would go ahead and give it a 7.5. The entire defensive line front, and that's because we don't know what we're going to get from Von Miller. But overall, I think it's a lot of versatility over there with the defensive line. You have, Dwayne Carter, who can play one tech, three tech. He can be base defensive end in some situations. You got Gregory Rousseau, who could play inside and out. You got AJ Epinesa, who could play inside and out. You have Von Miller, and you have Casey Toohill. So I do think there's some flexibility and versatility along the defensive front. It's more about, okay, who is going to make the play when we need a play to be made? And we signed Von Miller to be that guy to make the play when we need a play made. But if he's not that guy, because he's not the same guy, due to the injury, who can step up? Can it be a committee? Can it be one guy this week, another guy next week, or will somebody rise up to the occasion and be that guy? Can AJ Epinesa ascend to be that guy? Can Gregory Rousseau ascend to be that guy? Can Solomon maybe not play three downs and play 50% of the snaps, but in his rotational role and when he's out there in pass rush situations, can he make an impact? So those are things that will be remain to be seen, and that can hinder a grade or give it an uptick along the defensive front. So we'll definitely see.
Yeah, and I like the Solomon pick. I think he adds a lot to the room
Mm-hmm.
and may get more of an opportunity than some people might think.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. A Rich Hakeem Richens, not DM3, Lance Nelson, president of BIB, Founders Pod. This has been an excellent show, Lance. I appreciate you for tuning in. Dave, I believe he had to attend a wedding. So shout out Dave. Hopefully he don't catch the bouquet again and get back to us next week on the Founders Pod. But I'm glad and blessed to have my brother Lance here with me and the fill-in, man. I appreciate you. Anything else you have to say before we get out of here? 338 people watching. I appreciate everybody that tuned into the Founders Pod tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't sleep on Daquan Hardy, another draft pick that could
Yes.
be our returner in the upcoming years. So I'm excited about that. Really good draft lot, I think, for this team, and I'm excited to see how. I'm excited. I'm really excited to see how they might add one or two pieces after June 1st when that Trey White uh, contract kicks in there and the release goes through. I'm excited to see kind of how that shapes up. And then once we get into training camp, there's going to be a lot of heated battles because there's a lot of talent on this roster for backup roles, basically.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how the roster would look or is going to look in September. And it's still a developing process. Like being said, he's always looking to upgrade the football team and upgrade talent where he sees fit. Now, when we get that 10.2 million in on June 1st, we'll see if he looks to cash in on what he constantly says throughout his tenure as the Buffalo Bills GM. But once again, A. Rich Akeem Richards, Lance Nelson, president of BIB, the Founders Pod. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Ladies and gentlemen, go Bills. See you same time next week.
Go Bills.
Go Bills, baby.